Hello and welcome to the live webinar, Discover Human Design, the blueprint of who you really are and who you're meant to be in this lifetime. For those of you who may be watching and you don't know who I am, my name is Julianne Connard. I work with the Stargate experience, and if you don't know what that is, this is the Stargate. It is a sacred geometric structure that creates a high vibrational energy field, which is used to take people very deep into meditation effortlessly. But today in this webinar, I'm so excited to introduce all of you to Mariah Miller, who is a human design practitioner and master coach. Mariah, welcome.
Thank you, Julianne. Thank you so much. And I am so thrilled to be here with you. It's always so lovely to connect with you. And I just want to let you know, I really have the highest regard for you. You're such a wonderful, warm and bright spirit, and you really bring so much light into the world. So I'm really thrilled to be doing this webinar with you.
Thank you so much.
Well, I'd love to take a moment and introduce myself and then get started. Excellent. Okay, so my name is Mariah Miller, and I'm really excited to share about human design with all of you. And I really want to appreciate and thank everybody who's here on the call with us, because even if you're live or listening to the call, the fact that you're showing up for something like this really means, it takes a certain kind of people. It means that you have the dedication to take time out of your day to give to something that is really important to you, to your own growth, and not just that, but to the growth of the planet. And it's really my belief that the more we are individually aligned with who we truly are, and the more that we live from that place, not only do we benefit our own lives and our relationships, but the better we help the planet. And the planet really needs us to step up and live our very highest best at this time. So I really want to appreciate you all for being here.
Absolutely. And that's a beautiful point. That's something that Alcazar says, the Stargate's Guide, is the fastest way actually to help humanity is to focus on yourself, to bring more consciousness into your own life.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also want to thank everybody who requested their chart. We have been absolutely overwhelmed with the incredible response that we've received. We usually are well within the 24 hours in delivering the chart, and this time it's been just so wonderful to receive so many requests. Just know that if you've not received your chart yet, we are working diligently on them, and we will get it out to you as soon as possible. And even if you don't have it at this moment, I believe that there's still going to be a lot of value for you within this webinar, and you'll definitely understand your chart a little better when you receive it. So again, my apologies for that. It's on its way. So what I want to do today is share a little bit about the background of human design, and then we'll talk a little bit about the types. We'll also talk about the auras that are associated with the human design types. And then I have the pleasure of showing Julianne and Pragit's charts and just share a little bit about that with all of you. So, and I really appreciate both you, Julianne, and Pragit, for the vulnerability of daring to share your chart with the world.
Yeah, I'm really excited to share the chart with you because it explains certain elements that I have, elements that Pragit has, in such a crystal clear, beautiful way. So I feel like I'm excited to see what you have to say about us.
Okay. All right. So what I was going to do is start a slideshow. I have some slides that I think will be very helpful. Okay, here we go. So here you see the human design chart, and as we go through this presentation, we'll definitely get into a number of these aspects. So here's me. You see a picture of me of this last June. We were at Stonehenge, obviously, an incredibly beautiful spiritual experience. I can highly recommend it. And you see my chart, and what we say in human design language is that I am a 1/4 generator, emotionally defined. Now, this doesn't mean much to anybody who's not really familiar with human design just yet, but we'll get at least into a small part of this. So I want to share a little bit about my story. I've done human design readings for the past 15 years, and I use it both for my own personal growth as well as with my clients as the foundation of our coaching. And the thing is that human design for me has brought a lot of clarity and a lot of guidance in my life, but it wasn't like that when I first met human design. Human design came into my life when my marriage was falling apart. And it actually ended up in a divorce. And I don't know if you experienced this, but when you're going through big life changes, for me, that's the time that I start asking those big questions, those questions of, you know, who am I really? What is my purpose? What am I supposed to do with the rest of my life now that it's obviously not in, you know, going in the direction as I thought it was going to? So at a certain training, someone introduced me to human design, and I was just drawn in. The picture just really resonated with me, and I had a reading that was really beautiful. It gave me just a lot of information that I hadn't dared seeing in a long time. And I have to say, unfortunately, that was where the information ended. I didn't really do much with it, because in real life, I was still in the middle of this chaos with my you know, in the middle of my divorce, getting things ready, my coaching business at the time, because when you're going through big life changes, my coaching business disappeared. And I found myself having to take care of my daughter, daughters, plural, having to pay rent, healthcare, all those really practical things. And I started looking for a job. And at the time, it wasn't very easy to find something. So here I was, no income to speak of, my savings dwindling and disappearing. And the situation even got so dire that I only had 1 month's rent left. But I was really determined. I had this internal knowing that it was all going to work out. I didn't know how. But that was when human design, when human design came back up for me. And I actually started using some of the information that was in the chart, because what's really beautiful of human design is that not only is it very clarifying and it gives you a real understanding of yourself, it's also practical. So I started using human design, and things shifted dramatically for me. So I found a job. Within a month, I got a 20% raise. Within 3 months, I became the director of that department. And then I also met a new life partner with whom I've now been married for almost 13 years. So obviously, human design has really worked very well for me, and it actually still does. So now I have this beautiful experience in life where I get the opportunity to do people's readings. I get to help them integrate their human design. And what thrills me every single time is that when I share about someone's design with them, it's so transformational. It's so empowering to them. It's just something that, you know, you hear it in their voice, you see it on their face. There's this revelation of, wow, this is really me. And there's this whole way, this new way of seeing themselves, like life suddenly makes sense. Now, human design is a huge body of work, and we don't have a lot of time to go into a lot of it today. For the people who are really interested in wanting to learn more, I will share more about that later. But for now, I just want to kind of delve in a little bit and share a little bit on a story of one of my clients. Her name was Anna, is Anna. She's still here. And she owned her own business, but she came to me because she was really stuck in her business. She had so many different things going on and felt really pulled in many different ways and wasn't sure what to do. And as we went through her reading, there's something in human design chart that for her meant new beginnings. And what that means is that when you have this particular aspect in your chart, it means I call it a serial starter. You're great at starting new things, but it also means that you're not supposed to be the one completing it all. You're the one who's supposed to start things and then move them on to other people who are then supposed to, or who can then take them on and complete them. And when she heard that, it was like this whole weight just dropped off her. I saw her shoulders, go down. And she was just so grateful because now she could focus her attention on what she was really good at instead of, blaming herself for never completing anything. Because it was just not how she is designed. And with that information, her business has been really taken off. So it's again, human design can give this real insight that allows you to see yourself with so much more compassion. You get to see these patterns in your life. So I want to give you a little bit of the background of human design. So Ra Uru Hu, this is a person who is the one who developed human design. It's how he came to be known. His name was actually very different, but this is the name that he went by after he engaged with human design. He encountered human design. Human design came about in 1987 on the island of Ibiza in Spain. And the way that he tells this story was that he lived a very secluded life. It was just him and his dog living in this one room of this ruin that he had closed with, one wooden door. He didn't have any possessions and didn't have anything in his life, didn't have friends, and was really just this Einling, this real Einzelgänger, this person who just was completely by himself. So one evening, on his way home, he was walking and saw his ruin, and underneath the door, there was some light. Now, this was really peculiar because he didn't have any electricity. He actually only had one oil lamp, but he didn't have the money for the oil lamp. And if he would have had the money, he wouldn't even known where to purchase it. But obviously there was light, so someone was there. So very apprehensively, he opened the door. And how he remembered is he saw the oil lamp lit and swaying back and forth. And then he fell to the ground. And for 8 days and 8 nights straight, this being, which he calls the voice, downloaded this information in him that gave him all the functionality of the universe. It really laid everything out for him and gave him this system, the human design system, to be able to write down and use within the world. Now, after this experience, it took it about a year for him to become comfortable with this information, to kind of get over the traumatic shock. And he started giving readings to people. And then at a certain point, because the trauma was so big of undergoing this whole, pinned down download, that he got really upset and told everybody who he'd done readings for, burn your charts. I don't want to deal with this anymore. We're done. Now, luckily, one person held on to her chart, and about a year or so later, she came back to him and said, this information needs to be shared with the world. And at that time, he started recreating the material, and, that was the start of bringing it out into the world. Now, this is how powerful I know this work to be. My very first reading for someone, this many, many years ago, was for someone whom I met at an event. I didn't know her. We just started a conversation and she was really interested. So I did this reading for her, and at the end, she was crying. Tears were streaming down her face. And she said to me, I've had lots of different readings, but now I understand things, that are always happening to me, certain patterns that I never knew why. I really get it now. And what happened for her, that she felt really seen and really understood through her reading, and it really just lit her up on the inside. And it was just a really powerful experience to witness. So let's take a look at the human design mandala. So as you see, this beautiful figure here is a snapshot of the universe coming into form at the moment of your birth. Now, you have to imagine that all around us are star fields, the planets, solar systems that are surrounding us. Now, in astrology, we divide the sky up into 12 signs, the astrological signs. You see this rectangular, this purple rectangular around one of the signs there. In human design, we actually take a look at 64 parts, and those are the 64 gates or 64 hexagrams of the I Ching. And you'll see that at the outer ring, those are all the hexagrams of the I Ching. Now, if you look, each hexagram actually has 6 lines, and that corresponds to the 6 bases of our DNA. So there is this genetic continuity that comes in through this. And then you also see the different centers within the figure in the center. You see triangles and squares. We call them centers. We used to be a 7-centered chakra being. We've over time evolved to become a 9-centered chakra being. Now back to those star fields, again, all around us is space, but the space around us is not empty. In that space are tiny particles that are flying through them. It's called neutrinos. And these neutrinos are so tiny that they pass through everything. They pass through planets, they pass through us. Just to give you an idea, it's about 65 billion neutrinos that pass through 1 square centimeter of area on Earth every second. So that's huge. Now, what is special about neutrinos is that they actually have some mass, which means that as they pass through a planet, they actually take some information from the planet with them, which they then leave behind with the next thing that they pass through. So this is kind of the science behind astrology, because each of these planets actually has their own archetypical information. And that archetypical information passes through and colors you with that information at the moment of your birth. So in human design, let me introduce Julianne to you.
Hello.
So in human design, we actually make 2 calculations. So we take someone's birth information, and that's why if you've requested your chart, you notice that you were asked for your city as well as your birth date and your birth time. Now, the city is most important to get as close to like the time zone. The time itself is most important. So the closer you can get to your actual time, the closer we can get to your real chart. I sometimes get questions, well, how much does an hour difference make? Sometimes a lot of difference, and sometimes not so much. It really depends. So I can always look on my program and see what the difference really is to determine, how close do we need to get. So the first calculation on the right-hand side is done at the moment of your birth. These are all the black numbers. And as you see, next to the black numbers are the symbols of the planets. So we have the sun, and below that we have the earth, we have the moon, we have the north and south node, we have Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. And then the numbers that you see in black, these are basically the hexagrams that were colored at the moment of your birth, and they have a placement in the chart. You see that each number in the chart, some have a circle around them. Those are the ones that have been activated. And then there's a lot of numbers that are also just plain in white centers and such. Those are not activated in Julianne's chart. Now, this information in the black, it's what we call conscious information. This is information that when I talk about it to Julianne, this is how she knows herself. This is how she recognizes how she is. Now, on the other side, we have information that was calculation done about 3 months before the birth. And at this time, it's the time that the soul enters the body. It's the time where the conscious, the neocortex turns on. So that's the time where you're actually downloading your the information from your previous lives, from forefathers, especially those things where forefathers, you know, the gifts and strengths that they're passing on to you, as well as those things that they may not have gotten as far with in their life. And you're in your life are getting an opportunity to bring it up to a higher vibration. So this is that kind of that genetic continuity that passes on. So this information, as I mentioned, it's unconscious. This information, when I read this to people, sometimes they may not necessarily recognize it in themselves unless they've done a lot of work, and then they're, you know, of course, more aware of themselves. But this is the information that if you don't recognize it, your family and your friends certainly will. Oh yes, that's always how you are. That's just how you do things. So it can bring, you know, a lot of the unconscious into the conscious, make you more aware of what's going on. So you see those black and red gates, they all have their placement in the chart. And you see that they connect within the centers. And those centers, some of them are colored in and some of them are white. The ones that are colored in, that's where we say the energy is consistently active, it's consistently running. It's where where Julianne consistently has access to. And on the other side, you see those white areas. Those are the areas that Julianne will only have access to when other people are around or when there is a transit. In other words, she doesn't have consistently access to those. It's really the environment that she is experiencing through this. Now, those white areas are also the areas where we tend to grow. It's where we become wise, because we become wise about how we experience our environment in different ways, depending on different circumstances and different people. I know this is a lot of information, so I hope this all makes sense. But if you have your own chart, you'll be able to see the areas where you are actually, you know, colored in other words, where you consistently have access to, versus those areas where you are white and you don't consistently have access to. So I'm just going to briefly name the names of those centers so that you can, if you have your chart and want to jot them down, then you'll have an idea. But we don't have a lot of time to go really deep into the centers today. So when we start from the top, this is the center of inspiration. Right below that is the center of the mind, conceptualization, how we think. Below that, that brown square, that's our throat. All the energy basically wants to express itself through the throat. It's where we manifest. Right below that, we have the diamond center, the yellow diamond, and that's the center of the self. It gives us direction in life. It gives us our purpose. It also gives us the place and the job, etc., the love relationships that we're designed to have. The white on the right-hand side, the white little triangle is the heart center, which is different from like the heart in that it's not about love. It's really about values and about our discipline and about willpower, determination. Below that, the red square, that's our sacral center. To the right of that, that brown triangle is called our emotional center or solar plexus. To the left, the white triangle there is called the spleen, and at the bottom we have the root center. And again, all these different centers have a certain meaning. I'll go over a little bit as I delve a little deeper into Julianne's chart in a moment, but this just gives you an idea of the different areas that we're looking at within human design. Julianne, are you following so far?
Yeah, I'm with you.
Okay, good. So over here is I wanted to introduce you how you can look at charts and see the different ways they are configured. When we're looking at human design, and this is what we call a body graph, that internal part of the human design, you see that some have a lot of centers colored in, some have nothing colored in, some have, just a few or just two colored in, and all these different configurations means that there are different types within human design. And that's one of the first things that I look at within a human design when I first do a reading. So the first thing, sorry about this. The first thing that I want to point out is that each type has their own way in how you use your energy best, basically. So at the bottom right, you see this one that has, I can't quite count them. I think there's 7 of the centers colored in. Excuse me. This is, we have the generator and the manifesting generator. This is what their design looks like. And manifesting generators and generators are here to do what they love. When they do what they love, they experience satisfaction. And satisfaction, fulfillment, they feel really good. They get in this flow during their day. That's how you're designed to lead your life. If you don't, if you're getting engaged with things that are not aligned with your design, and tend to live your life up from your mind, which in human design never is where our real decision making comes from, then you get to the place where you can get stuck and you can get into a rut. For instance, you're in a job that's no longer aligned with who you are, and you'll start to feel really frustrated. So the best thing to do at that point is to respond, and I'll go into that in just a little bit in a moment. But that will allow you to bring yourself back into alignment with your design. Now we also have projectors. Projectors on the left-hand side at the bottom, you see a projector who only has 2 little centers colored in. At the top right, you see a projector. Let me see. No, at the very top is a projector. In this top center is a projector with the 2 head centers, the green and the yellow colored in. Projectors are here to be a guide for others, and they're here to do best when they're recognized by other people for what they can bring in. These are really bright people. They like to study, and they can really bring a very strong focus on what they're doing. And when they're being recognized and invited, they have the potential for great success. If they don't feel recognized, then they can feel really bitter. We also have manifestors. Manifestors are on the top left and the top right, 2 different kinds of manifestors there. Manifestors are really here to make things happen in the world. The song "I Did It My Way" is really like a manifestor world. Manifestors just go out and they're already doing it, while the rest of us are still waiting to see if it's really the right thing to do. And they're already out doing it and creating change for everybody. Now, because they are such catalysts for change, it can sometimes bring resistance up in the world around them, because many people don't really like change. They don't really know what to expect when there's change happening, so it makes them feel uncomfortable. So when a manifestor informs people that change is about to happen, and letting them know, hey, I'm going to be working on this project, it's going to be just really amazing, and this and this and this is what I'm going to see happening with this, then everybody else around them can just heave this sigh of relief, and then the manifestors can go ahead, create their change with experiencing the peace along the way, because they're being left alone doing their thing that they do best. And then in the center, you see this figure that is completely white. Now, I want to make a disclaimer that whether you have centers colored in or not colored in, it's all perfect. There's nothing wrong with your chart. It's really how you are designed to be. So in the center, you see this figure that has no centers colored in, and there's a very few of us. I'm not a reflector, but these are reflectors are really special beings in the world. They really take in their environment in a very deep way. As you see, all these centers are open or undefined. That's where information is being taken in from their environment. And they're really here to reflect what is going on around them. And when reflectors are in the right place, they have a great overview and they experience a sense of awe and surprise in their life, and that brings them great joy. And when they're not in alignment with their design, they experience disappointment. Now, each type has also its own way in how you attract opportunities in your life. And that's how we can see how the aura works. So here we see the aura of a generator or a manifesting generator. It's very open, very enveloping. It's like this big hug, you know. You attract opportunities into your life as a generator or a manifesting generator simply by bringing yourself in different environments and seeing what comes your way. And then you have this internal energetic gauge that lets you know, yes, I'm available to engage with this or not. And sometimes it can come with a sound of a uh-huh or uh-uh. And for me, actually, I am a generator. So for me, this actually happens with a feeling of the energy moving me forward, like my whole body moves towards it and moves back when it's not right for me. Now, projectors have a very different aura. As you can see on the left-hand side is this woman, this projector woman, who is really focused on this other woman in front of her. And as you see, what happens to the aura is that it creates this focal point into the other person. As a projector, you have this ability to really see into others and to ask amazing questions because of what you see within that other person. However, that focused energy needs to be invited. As you see in this picture, it is invited. This woman in front of her is really engaged with her. And that is how opportunities come to projectors. It's an invitation. Invitation can come in a formal letter, it can come in an email, it can come in a phone call, or it can come simply by someone looking at you and just like, hey, or walking up to you. Those are all invitations for a projector. And when a projector has that invitation, then the energy, the focus is invited. If the focus is not invited, and you just walk up to someone as a projector and you just start a conversation without being invited into the group, you will notice this deer in the headlight look that people can get. It can get really uncomfortable for other people because of the intense focus that you can bring. Now, manifestors aura, it's very different. Again, manifestors make things happen and their auras really reflect that. So they just want to go out, they want to do things, they want to do what their environment needs. So their aura is closed. It's very, action oriented. It's not about taking things in, it's about moving forward and moving, like outward. And then reflectors, they have this kind of diffuse sampling aura. And it almost is like Teflon. It's for other people. You can't really get a good look at a reflector because a reflector's aura actually reflects you. It reflects your being, which can be an amazing experience. Now, for a reflector, it's really important because they take in so much, is that all kinds of opportunities will be coming their way. But a reflector really needs to take their time before they decide. As a reflector, you don't want to take a decision based on someone else's aura that you've just taken in. So you want to give yourself plenty of time. And in human design, we actually talk about 29 days, which seems like an enormous amount of time. Life for a reflector is very different from the rest of us. Okay.
I actually heard that Amma, who's the hugging saint, is a reflector, which I thought was really beautiful.
Oh, That is beautiful. I didn't know that. That totally explains it. Yeah, yeah. There's such a love that comes from her. Beautiful. Now, I have created a few different videos for each type. So if you want to know your type and you want to see the video that accompanies that type, you can definitely request your chart. And part of that, you'll also receive another little video of one of the centers that makes a lot of difference for how you're being within relationships. So that might be interesting to people.
And I just put the link to requesting your chart in the chat box. So you should be able to click that and enter all your information, and you can request your chart that way. And as Mariah mentioned a little bit earlier, they are working on getting you your charts as soon as possible. They've gotten tons of requests.
Yes, yes, which I so am deeply grateful for, because it really shows me how, how wanted this information is, and, ready to change the world. Okay.
Yeah.
So here we have Julianne's chart. Again, Julianne and Brigitte have been so kind for us to take a look at their charts. And as you can see, Julianne's chart is really interesting when we look at the centers, because do you see how some of them are colored in and then some of them are completely white? Now, in human design, we actually take a look at those white centers, because those are the areas where they take in the environment. And when it's completely white, it really takes in, like Julianne takes in her environment in a very deep way. So for Julianne, the areas where you're developing your wisdom over time is through inspiration, that very top triangle, and through conceptualization. How do I want to think and learn about different things? Values, that little triangle, which is the heart, like even recognizing the value of what she brings into the world with her gifts. And also on the left-hand side, that triangle on health and wellness. Now, when we look at Julianne's type, Julianne is a manifesting generator. And a large percentage of the population is actually a manifesting generator. It's about 35%, which means that manifesting generators do better when they respond. So here's how that works. If Julianne wakes up one morning and says, what shall I do today? You know what? I am going to create a program. Now, if there was no impetus to that, if there was nothing around her that inspired that response, she'll find that she'll have a lot of frustration along the way. I always feel like it's wading through molasses, Do you recognize that feeling, Julianne?
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah. And the thing is that if Julianne happens to be at an event and she overhears someone having a conversation about how certain people respond to particular energies, and that sparks this idea of, you know what, I should create a program about health and how certain energy, this particular energy, actually can support someone's health. Now that is a response. And when she gets engaged with that, if she has that internal yes experience, then things will just flow much more easily for her. And she'll actually experience a lot of satisfaction as she's creating this. Now, with a manifesting generator, there's an additional little something, because she has a way that goes so fast that it's almost too fast for her sometimes. We've talked about that in the past. So what that means for Julianne is that if someone calls up Julianne and says, you want to go have dinner tonight, let's go out. And her first response is, yeah, let's do it. Before she knows it, she might already find herself standing at the door with her coat in her hand, ready to go. Now, for a manifesting generator, there's a little pause moment there. There's a little moment where she can check in with herself and just, is this really the right thing for me? Is this really what is best for me right now? You know what? I have been away for the last 5 days. This is my first night home. I'd actually rather stay home. Now she can do two things. She can either push herself and say, you know what, I already told this person I was going to go. I'm just going to go ahead and I'll just, push through it. And she may do that and feel really tired and exhausted and maybe not have such a great time, versus giving her friend a call and say, you know what, listen, I actually realize I'm really tired. What do you think about coming over here for a cup of tea? That is a different way in managing it.
Yeah, so what I love so much about this is, like Mariah and I have talked about this before, and I was saying to her, like, whenever I just push through it anyway and just go for it, it always ends up being like at the end just this like deflated kind of like, I should not have done that. Like it wasn't worth it. And so it's so interesting to have that awareness really, really heightened to say like, no, give yourself that permission to be flexible when you do come up against your own inner authority telling you, hey, this isn't quite right for me right now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Beautiful. And I just love how you've integrated it and then you know it of yourself. You've learned to listen to it. That's beautiful.
I still get those demonstrations every now and then when it's not
right. It's just a little check of the universe, just letting you know, paying attention. Yeah. Right. So if we, again, take a look at Julianne's chart, we see that red little square. Now, that red square is where the energy of her chart is basically moving up towards her throat center, that brown triangle that you see that's higher up. And what that means is that Julianne, what this means for Julianne, let me say it that way, is you have a specific purpose and a specific career that it's unusual in a sense. And it can make you sometimes feel like you're, on the outside of society. And just accept that is just part of who you are. I've, with a lot of interest and a lot of love, seen how many people from the Stargate requests that I've seen their charts of have this kind of circuitry. It's not necessarily exact same connections that they have, but it's the same kind of feel that a lot of people in this environment feel like, wow, we're not mainstream. And, if you're by yourself in mainstream, it can really feel uncomfortable. So it's so beautiful to see that us not mainstream people have found a place to be together.
Absolutely. And we find that so much at Stargate events, that sense of like this, like joy that happens when you recognize that like other people are also on this cutting edge that is very individual. And then I've also just recently like been explaining what I do to someone, and I was just like, this is so crazy. Like, but they were totally open to it. So yeah, I know.
Yeah, that's beautiful. It's interesting because I have this same kind of circuitry as well. And, human design is definitely not mainstream, but I am using it with businesses too. So there is this, I feel like there's this slow opening that is just people are more available to these kinds of, methodologies or ways to recognize more about themselves. I think that's just the perfect time for all of us.
Yeah.
I want to jump back to your chart if that's all right. So one of the things that you do through your design is deliver empowering and transformative information to others. You give people direction in life through your enthusiasm. You help bring people together and bring ease in life regarding their purpose and regarding their goals in life. And that's just me just taking out a couple little pieces of your design and putting it together. If we really take time, it takes about an hour to an hour and a half to really delve deep, but this is just kind of pulling things together. If we look on the left-hand side, we see that the spleen center is completely white. And what that means is that, again, you're taking in the environment here, which means that for you, Julianne, you're a psychic being. you really feel and hear and have great intuition. Are you aware of that?
Yeah, absolutely. I find sometimes that it's like I can really feel other people.
Right, exactly. You can. Yeah. And I would say that you can actually listen very deeply to what's really going on underneath. Yeah, beautiful. And it actually brings me to the top, because the two top centers are also completely open, and the very top is inspiration. So it means for you, Julianne, that you can be inspired by anything, whether it is a song, whether it's something that's written or someone says something, it can just bring you to tears. It can just really just have this beautiful, like, wow for you. And then below that, again, this is a center of conceptualization on how we think. And because it is white, it allows you to actually pick up other people's thoughts. Have you noticed that when you walk into a room and you can just hear people's conversations going on inside your mind?
Yeah. Yeah, actually, literally, was sharing thoughts with my dear friend the other day. I was like, "Whoa, we're both thinking the same thing."
Wow, that's very
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, yeah. You'll find yourself saying or finishing other people's sentences because you're already hearing it. That's great. Excellent. So, here's what's next. So in a moment, we're going to take a look at Pragit's chart. But what I really just wanted to be able to show you with all of this is how this information just gets you so clear on your gifts and your strengths and your purpose, as well as those areas where, things are coming into you and you need to find a different way of managing it that will be better for you to live more in alignment. And the great thing with human design is that it gives you this decision-making strategy, and that just makes it so much easier.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you want to say something else?
So what I've been really playing with is the decision-making strategy, which is kind of at the heart of how human design can really transform your life.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to say it's been really plugging me into making decisions that are right for me that I might not even know in the moment why, but it plays out and I'm like, oh, thank goodness I made that decision in that way because I was trusting that yes, no.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say that. Yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you. So human design is like I call it an ownership, an owner's manual for your life. The thing is that we have so many choices that happens for us during the day. And, being aware of what your purpose is, how you go about it, how to recognize when a choice is correct for you, like you were just saying, it's really just the beauty. And it's helped so many of my clients too. So let's take a look at Pragit's chart. Now, if you see, his chart is very different, right? Where with Julianne's chart, a lot of the colors were in the center area. And in Pragit's chart, it's kind of on the opposite side. It's at the top and at the bottom. So you can, if you just imagine, if you put those two charts together, you can actually imagine why these two can work so well together, because you're really filling each other in so well. Now, Pragit's chart type is different, where Julianne, you are a manifesting generator. Pragit is actually a generator. Like Julianne, it means that he has that same amount of energy that he needs to use doing what he loves and loving what he's doing. This is really important to him. And in his case, his energy during the day is more sustaining than Julianne's energy. Julianne's energy kind of goes in fits and bursts. She can be really
That
right?
makes so much sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, when you look at Pragit's bottom centers, there's a lot of energy that's connected with one channel from the brown root center at the bottom to the sacral center, the red square right above it. And the way that it works for him is through what we call sudden mutation. So here's what happens. The things are just kind of happening. Things are kind of building. And he's starting to notice that there's something that's not quite right for a while. And so he's starting to put his resources together. you know, whether that is financially or support-wise, like who and what is really needed for the upcoming changes. Like he's really kind of pulling all these things together. And then suddenly the change happens. There's this moment that everything shifts. And that moment is incredibly empowering for him because it creates a whole new way of being, a whole new direction in life, and for everybody else around. Everybody else around is kind of like, hold on to your head, here we go.
And it's so cool that that's written in his design, because I see that happening all the time at the Stargate events. It's like we're just going and going and building and building, and then all of a sudden, whoosh, everything's different. Cool. It's like that for everybody, and we're suddenly in this totally like whole new world kind of energy field.
I love that. Thank you for that. Actually, when you were saying that, I got goosebumps, which to me is like spirit is speaking. Yeah, nice. So then let's move to the top of his design. You see that those centers there are really connected very strongly. It means that Prageet is obviously, he's very bright, he's very smart, he likes to conceptualize, he likes to think about patterns and processes and about ancient wisdoms. If you look at the connection on the left-hand side, his inspiration comes in through abstract thinking. So through ancient wisdoms and trying to create the meaning, or trying to recognize the meaning of life. Now, on the right-hand side, there is another connection which looks at the environment and sees what is not quite right. I find it fascinating. At the top, let's see, in that yellow triangle on the right-hand side is the number 63. We call it the 63rd gate. It's where where the energy came in through the 63rd hexagram, basically. Now, if you look at the numbers on either side, you see that that number 63 is mentioned 4 times. This is unusual. Most of the time in a chart, you'll see it, you know, once at least, sometimes twice. But when a particular number ends up to be there 3 times or 4 times, it really means there's an importance for this person here. So Prageet's strength is recognizing what in the environment needs fixing on a, you know, larger societal level, global level, and then being able to give that answer. You know, giving answers immediately. Like it can be as simple as walking into a room and seeing a picture that's hanging just a little bit off. He'll be the one noticing that. Like
that's literally happened so many times before.
That's right. Yeah. But it's actually also for the larger patterns. You know, how are our systems in life set up? And Prageet is really capable in noticing, you know, things need shifting here, and then giving an answer into a solution into how that can be shifted.
Yeah, and that's beautiful because I see him doing that all the time. When he does the channelings for people one-on-one, it's bringing them into this awareness of like what's not quite working for them.
Yeah. Beautiful. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then of course the connection to the throat. So of course he expresses that in a way that is incredibly empowering and transformative to other people around him. Yeah. Okay. So I can go on, but this, I hope, has given a little bit of an idea of what human design is really about.
And this is what is so brilliant about this system to me, is the specificity, the pinpoint clarity that you get from having somebody consciously describe these different, I guess they're the hexagram, the channels and the gates. It's just, it's so totally empowering, totally beautiful. And it really is a direct transmission. When I hear my chart described, I really start to like get these clicks, these insights. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, for me too. And what I found is that the reading that I had 15 years ago, you know, I still listen to that. I've had other readings done in the meantime too, because different practitioners bring in different points of view, different perspectives. But what I find is that even if I listen back to that first reading 15 plus years ago, wow, it still resonates. And there's just different pieces that I pick out. Oh, wow, that's there too. I hadn't noticed that before. It's, you're finally ready to hear those. Yeah,
Totally,
yeah,
totally.
yeah.
And somebody was asking earlier about what the yellows and greens and reds and browns are. Those are just the colors that have been assigned to the different centers, right?
Correct, correct. It's still a mystery, what those particular colors actually mean. As far as I know, there's no real reason for the particular colors. It's just how the information was given through the voice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah. So, if you want to learn more about your human design, I again love to send your chart to you. As you know, there is a little bit of a delay. We are working very hard on them, so we can definitely get that out to you. I am also doing a program called the Human Design Experience that starts November 10th. And in that program, we talk about the types and we talk about the centers mostly. But most important is that it's very practical, it's very experiential. Because again, what I found is that when people get the information, it clicks and it's wonderful and it gives you this energetic tune-up. But if you don't use this information, it's just there. Once you actually start using it, big changes can happen for you if you choose to. So, yeah. All right.
So personally, I just wanted to say I'm really excited about taking your program because of what I've found with human design is that it really refines my ability to make those choices that enhance my particular life, but also they enhance what I'm able to bring to the world.
Yeah.
So on the one hand, it's like I'm taking care of myself better because I'm like really like listening from not like what other people expect of me, which is always the great temptation, right? Mm-hmm. But I'm listening to like my own inner authority and strategy, as they call it in human design. And it's different for the different aura types.
Exactly.
So, yeah. And I'm really excited to learn more about how to continue that experiment in my own life and how to refine my understanding of the strategy and authority.
Yeah, beautiful. It's a lifelong learning, right? I've been living with my design for a long time, and I recognize it's not that it's not there, the parts that can pull you out of alignment, as you say. It's just that you become more aware of, wow, I'm not using my energy how I'm designed. I'm noticing it. Let me take that shift. Let me, realign. So, yeah, I'm so glad you'll be joining me. Thank you. That's great. Yeah. Great. All right. Well, is there any particular question that you are noticing people are asking?
Somebody asked, does the chart change with your evolution?
Good question. So your human design chart is your blueprint chart, right? So this is what you came into with this lifetime. And getting that clean and clear really takes a lot of time, a lot of life, a lot of life to happen. What you can do is do like solar returns and Chiron returns, so different phases of life. Take a look at what you're bringing in during that lifetime. But overall, this is your birth chart. That doesn't change in this lifetime.
Yeah, beautiful. Okay, so people are also asking, they do need to know their time of birth in order to get their chart, right?
As close to your time of birth is great, yes. Sometimes in readings, if I have someone who doesn't know their exact time of birth, but has kind of an estimation of, it was in the morning, if it's just a chart request, I'll just put in a time. But in a reading, we will actually take a look at what are the differences in the different times. And sometimes there is enough difference to say, well, if this is your chart, then you would notice that you love to garden. Or, I could really pick out things that resonate with this one chart, but not with the other. So we can pinpoint it to an approximation.
Okay, that's a good answer. Good to know. Another question, which is kind of interesting. Does the chart show you what you have mastered already and what you have to change for the better?
So that is a really good question, because what the chart shows you are your gifts and your strengths. It shows you the areas of focus, like your north and south node. Basically, south node shows you what you're coming in with in this lifetime to integrate. And then around age 40, it shifts to your north node. So that's your new perspective, what you're focusing on from then on. So that's where your real growth is. But those white areas in your chart, those are the areas that are a lifetime learning and lifetime wisdom that's developing there. The thing is that we all tend to live our life from where we're not, in a sense of, we're all more attracted to what we're not. So we tend to put our focus into those areas where we're not. So to recognize that there is a lot of different ways in how this who we're not can show up, that is where our wisdom comes from. So those are the areas that we're really growing.
Wow, that's really powerful. Okay. So people are asking some more questions. Joan is asking, what relevance are the hexagrams to the chart?
So if you see that big picture, it's basically the way that I see it is that the neutrinos are coming in through that particular hexagram, through that particular astrological sign, through that planet that then activates you in that particular way. So if you're looking at the numbers on your chart, those numbers are really the hexagram gates. And on either side, or if you're looking at that number, there's a 0.1, 0.2 that gives you the line number. So that gets really deep, specific information for you at that particular time. I hope that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah. And someone else who's asking, it's based just on the time and place of birth, right? So the name that they give doesn't have any impact on the chart.
Correct. The name doesn't have any impact. Yeah.
Great. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So first and last name is perfect.
Great. So I actually would love to hear a little bit more about the program itself. And people are asking some practical details, like when is the deadline to sign up and will it be recorded?
Oh, good question. Okay. The deadline to sign up is November 8th. And it will be recorded. So if you cannot attend live, you will be able to listen to the recordings. I would highly suggest to, at least if you're listening to it and you're not live, to participate with the different experiences that we're going to be doing. We're going to be, you'll get little assignments, as in be with friends and family and remember this particular part of your chart and kind of be aware in how different people affect this part of you. Like, what are you noticing? So you're getting a real experience of you and a real experience in how your decision making takes place, so that you become more and more aware of it, because it is a growth cycle. It's not that, okay, now I know it, sure, from now on I'll always respond, because there is a whole integration process that's part of that. Yeah.
Oh, I really like that, because it really, it's like I had my first fundamental human design reading with you in 2012, so 6 years ago now.
Yeah.
And what I've found is that I've become more and more curious about that really level of insight.
Yeah.
And correctness for me. That really seems for me to be where the cutting edge of this wisdom system can really impact lives. Yeah.
Well, what I find with human design is, initially people might get really interested by just the gates information, because it is so detailed, it's so pinpoint. It's like, wow, how do you know this about me, right? And that's kind of what draws people in. The focus of the program, though, is more how do you use your decision making and how can you be more of that? Because then everything else will fall into place.
Yeah. And that's where the true experience experiment is.
Correct.
It's almost like the pinpoint specificity of the of the chart kind of like proves to you that there's something that's beyond.
Yes.
It's beyond any other really reading I've had in how it felt like you were describing me.
Yeah.
And that's what really, yeah.
Yeah, it really, human design just draws from all these different wisdom systems. And it's not like, oh, there's astrology in it and oh, there's I Ching. It's just, it takes it all and it combines it in a synthesis. So it's no longer astrology. It's no longer the I Ching. It just creates this whole different way in how we look. And it's just, for me, this information came from, just allows us to see the huge, bigger picture out there. Like, wow, my life makes sense. You know?
Yeah. And there's so much. It's that cosmic level of information and wisdom that just continues to unravel.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Somebody actually asked, does the chart have energy for the person whose chart it is? And I would say, just in my experience, there's direct transmission, but really the way to tune into it is to understand it. Correct.
Yes, I totally agree with that. You know, if you see your human design chart, you've probably, at least this is what I've seen happen for me as well. For other people, I can't talk for you, but there is this instant, wow, this resonance. There is this attraction, and that already is an energetic tune-up. And then the reading kind of just, does even more of that, so that then you can start living it and really be it. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Mariah.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Julianne. Thank you, Prageet. And thank you, everybody here. I so love sharing about this, as you can hopefully see. I'm really passionate about this. And you're all amazing for bringing into the world what you are already doing. I deeply thank you for all of that. So take care. And I hope that you're going to be part of the program. I hope to see you there. We get to play.
Yeah, join us and join this magnificent experience experiment. Yeah, that's what Alcazar calls being on Earth. He calls it the Great Experience Experiment.
Oh, nice. Yes.
Yeah, and that's definitely how I see. I've heard human design described as that. It's an experiment that you enter into by starting to live with your authority and strategy.
Yes, correct. Yeah, I agree.
Cool.
All right.
Okay. Well, thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. Take care.